Hello YouTube, this is Mike, and as always on this channel we're going to talk about how to heal from the horrific effects of having been with a cluster B individual. Specifically in my case, an undiagnosed, untreated borderline. That was over a year ago. And so today we're going to be talking about magical thinking. If you've dated a borderline or a narcissist, you probably have run into their magical thinking. And what you may not realize is that you yourself may have magical thinking as well. In fact, I would venture to say that just for the relationship to work, for example, with a codependent and a borderline, there has to be magical thinking on your part. You know, when you meet somebody and there's this intense feeling of, oh my God, you're my soulmate and I've been waiting for you my whole life and nobody knows me like you know me, and finally you're going to accept me and I'm going to accept you. And then there's that first night together and you both overshare everything, all of your deepest, darkest secrets and the pain and the trauma, and you bond through your sharing of your tragedies, your wounds, and then you tell yourself, this is it, this is the ultimate. And then when things get bad and the borderline splits on you, or the narcissist, I guess narcissists do it too, they split on you, and you go through the abuse, and then you turn from being the love bombed infant to the avenging super empath who's going to heal the narcissist or the borderline of their issue. Then you have to have magical thinking in order for it to work, in order to convince yourself that this pain is actually the sign that we're really going to get somewhere. I remember having that experience. During the always tumultuous, it was just, as soon as I would show up, to meet her, and we were going to spend the weekend together or something, there'd be some drama, some crazy drama of us not being, just like me wondering what the hell's going on. And then we would both say, well, it's because we're so alike and we have this strong connection, and we have to get through our resistance, but we're just getting past the initial resistance and then it's going to be perfect. And so there was that magical thinking there. So what is that magical thinking about? And if you've seen here in the title, what I have in the title here is why the borderline, the narc, and the codependent has magical thinking. And then, of course, the end result is that relationship is impossible. So before we go any further, if you're new to my channel, this channel is designed for non-cluster Bs who are seeking to heal from the toxic damage of being with a borderline or a narcissist. I am not a therapist. I'm not here to be your therapist. I am somebody who has survived, and I have healed completely from that relationship. Now, it doesn't mean I'm perfect. I still have my issues I got to work on. But in terms of that relationship, I have nothing but healing in terms of that. I have no anger. I have no brooding. I have no resentment. I have no fantasies. I have no mourning. I don't, all the stuff that happens afterwards. I have nothing but love and true empathy for her, and also the knowledge that she would be very damaging to me if I were to even have contact with her. So the best way to make use of this channel, if you are a borderline, is to listen for how the mental illness of BPD is damaging to your non-borderline partners. Outside of that, I don't know what your motivations are. A lot of borderlines watch my channel. I guess I don't really understand why, but that's okay with me. All right, so in order to understand cluster B personality disorder, which, by the way, as you can see, I'm linking codependence with that. Why is that? because borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, these are all also forms of codependence. And it is impossible for you to have had a relationship with a cluster B without you yourself being codependent, even if you're not a cluster B. Because the one thing that they all share is that emptiness, that hole inside of them, that black hole in their gut. And all that's happening is that each, when you get these two people together that have this black hole in their gut, when the wounds draw them together, in order for that to work, people have to take on certain roles. One person will become the abuser, one person will become the victim. And sometimes they'll switch, and the victim will become the abuser, etc., etc. Borderlines are a great example because they straddle the line between full-blown external narcissist and codependent. They straddle that line in between because they go back and forth between the two, and they either go after, and they probably have multiple things going on at the same time. They may have a codependent on call, and then they'll have a narcissist on call, and I can imagine they would bounce back and forth between the two. When they need to be distracted from their loving feelings, which is frightening to them, they'll run towards the narcissist so they can be abused and always have that love out of reach, because the narcissist is never truly available and vulnerable to them. And then when they want to be healed from their abuse, they'll run to a codependent who will rush to fix them and take care of them. And then when they actually do start to feel the love and the vulnerability and the bond, then of course they split, and they'll turn the codependent in their mind into a narcissist, and then they'll go chasing after the narcissist. I'm not saying that's the case all the time, but I've certainly seen that. My experience with borderlines is that they will pick between the two. They'll either pick a full-blown narcissist or a codependent. And as we've also come to discover, together, I have discovered this with you, is that the professional victim, also known as the super empath, the professional victim is actually a covert narcissist. And once again, we need to look at our definitions. The word covert narcissist does not mean a narcissist who's hiding behind this fake facade of love in order to catch you. That's not a covert narcissist. Covert narcissist means that their external experience will be of the codependent. Their external experience will be of the victim. How they interact will be to people please and to save and to help and to, all of that. And then when they get stimulated, then they will turn, after they have stimulated whoever they're with to abuse them so that they can justify what a victim they are, then they will turn into a psychopath. So it's a secondary expression. It's covert, meaning it's hidden. Doesn't mean that they're consciously hiding it. I mean, if you type in covert narcissist on YouTube, you're going to hear a bunch of super empaths talking about how there are these narcissists, these evil geniuses that are planning your demise, these wolves that are looking to feed off of you, and they manipulate you, and then they come out and you see their true colors. It's so ironic. I mean, I want to use the word hypocritical, but it's not. I guess hypocrisy means that somebody's knowingly doing the opposite of what they say. I don't think covert narcissists know what they're doing. I don't think they're conscious at all of what they're doing. But I was, I go on and I do research, and lately now I'm wanting to research super empaths and their view on life and reality. And was listening to one super empath coach, and he was saying that I think the title of the video was how to destroy one of those things, how to destroy the narcissist, or how to gain the narcissist's respect, or something really strange like that. And then he was saying that one of the three things you can do, whatever the goal was, some way to absolutely, utterly decimate the narcissist. The second one was to what do you call it? Preemptive discarding. You have to discard them before they discard you. And I laughed out loud because that is what the borderline does. I mean, all he said was you have to be that he's consciously telling people to act like a borderline, to consciously interact with a narcissist and then discard them before they discard you. Which then presupposes, what are you doing with the narcissist anyway? I mean, in order for that, in order to have that as a strategy to gain your self-worth, the whole point is to gain your self-worth. Here are the ways to destroy the narcissist, I'm assuming, to gain your self-worth back. In order to do that, you have to be with one. So that means you have to seek one out. And then when you found one that's going to abuse you, then here's your strategy. You discard them first. I mean, it's what borderlines do. So it's like, I mean, are you a borderline? Is that what a super empath? And by the way, borderlines definitely, absolutely qualify as super empaths. I mean, everything you read about super empaths and the super heyokas and the, you apply that, that's exactly what a borderline is. Super, super, super intuitive, psychic, super psychic intuitive. They can tell what you're thinking, what you're going to think, what you just finished thinking. They can feel all of your feelings. In fact, they live vicariously through your emotions. My borderline ex, one of the love bombing strategies that she had, which sounded good to me at the time, being the good codependent and being, didn't have any experience with borderlines before. But she said, what I want is I want a strong male presence whom I can keep happy. And she, I'll do anything to keep him happy. I'll give him back rubs. I'll hurt his heart. I'll, massage his feet. I'll cook him food, because then he'll be happy. And then I can just sort of sit inside of their happiness and feel comfortable. Now, in my selfish narcissism at the time, my thought was, that's great. What guy doesn't want that? She and I have the same goal, which is my happiness. So I'm all for that. Let's make that happen. That's the super empath. And they, when the borderline is wanting to please you, they will morph themselves into whatever it is they think that you want. And I remember, again, my borderline doing that. And I remember red flags popping up. Her not eating all day because she wanted to be really thin and perfect for me. It's like, I don't know that I wanted you to stop eating. Whatever it was. It just her wanting, making it clear that having me be completely happy with her was what was most important. And the more she kept on talking about, the more uncomfortable I started becoming. I didn't understand why I was so uncomfortable. Here she is telling me she's going to try and be perfect, but my insides were saying, something ain't right here. You now need to start walking on glass, especially the one about if I'm not happy, she can't slide inside my happiness and then feed off of that. That started, then the whole relationship was about whether or not I was happy. She was unhappy, and it was my fault because I wasn't happy. And so therefore there was something wrong with me, so I could make her, and slippery slope. And I never got back. I never recovered from that, to be honest. So we need to take a look at what happens. How does somebody become borderline narcissist? So the narcissist and the borderline have the same issue. same problem. Somewhere between 0 and 2 years of age, there's damage in their psychological development. And so all babies, as I understand it, I'm learning as I go here, but it makes sense to me. If it makes sense to me, I share it with you. But all babies are always, they're hot and cold. Everything is black and white. And they worship the mother, especially. They worship the mother because the mother is life. The mother is God. In not just a real sense, in the ultimate sense. The mother is completely responsible for the child's complete well-being. Physically, obviously, they're not fed, clothed, bathed, kept warm, they will die. They will literally die. Babies will die if you do not give them love and attention, and if you do not mirror with them with your focus and your attention. I've talked about the story, but just suffice it to say, you can give all the food and warmth and clothing and everything that a human being needs, but if you do not emotionally interact with a child, with the baby, it will die. And so the borderline and the narcissist suffered from that. They got just enough attention to live, to keep them from dying, but not enough to actually create an identity. And so babies live in hell, as you know. Babies cry all the time. Anything makes a baby cry. The slightest disappointment will make them burst into scream crying because they can't regulate their responses and their feelings physically, emotionally. They don't have it. So both the borderline and the narcissist do this, and they idealize you. They worship you. And that's why it's so amazing to get the love bombing. They are worshiping you like a god. You can do no wrong. You are, in the words of my borderline ex, you're the best because you do all the things. You're the best. You're my favorite person. And then you become the worst person possible. This is a baby. So babies go through this. This is a natural, even healthy, mothers who are good to their children, their babies go through this and they still cry because at some point the mother is going to deny them something. And they're going to cry. They're going to scream cry, and in that moment that they're scream crying, they're full of rage, murderous rage towards their mother. They're infants, they can't act on it, so it's okay. And we go, just a baby's crying. But you take that same baby that's scream crying and you put that in the body of an adult, and you have a very dangerous person, perhaps even physically dangerous, because they can't tolerate that feeling of being rejected, of being denied. They can't tolerate it. And so because they don't have a sense of self, they project, the way I understand it now, which makes sense to me, is that they project onto the mother that the mother is perfect. The mother can do no wrong. And that is a defense mechanism. So the defense mechanism is the intolerable pain of being disappointed and not getting breast milk or whatever, warmth or a hug or, their diaper emptied or whatever it is that they need. Attention, love, whatever it is that they need. In order to survive that horror, they then project that the mother is all good and they themselves are all bad. So they internalize that good and bad. So there's always the good and bad. Mom is either perfect or mom is horrible. They internalize that in order to survive. The way it's like a process. So the beginning of the process is the child makes themselves ultimately bad and the mother ultimately good, right? And then ideally what happens is as the child grows up, they learn to integrate these two feelings, which again, if you've been with a borderline, they can't do. Same is true with a narcissist. They can't do it. They either love you or they hate you. They can't be in the middle. You're either all good or all bad. You can't just be good and bad at the same time. You can't disappoint them and have them still love you, which is what a mature adult does. When a mature adult decides to love, which as a verb, not love meaning an involuntary feeling, but when you decide to love somebody, then you know that you're taking the good with the bad. That's what the whole marriage thing is, in sickness and in health. It means I'm going to love you when you're good to me, and I'm going to love you when you're not in your best thing. I'm going to love you when you look good, and I'm going to make love to you when you don't look too good and you got body odor. You learn to integrate, and but first you do that with yourself. So you go from this schism of mother is perfect and I'm bad, which, by the way, do you hear religion in that? Isn't that what God, Jehovah, is? It tells you how narcissistic and how immature religion is. That you have sinned before God and God must throw you in hell. And because he hates you for being imperfect, and that's all it is. If you've been in church, all you have to do is just make one tiny mistake and that's it. You're out forever. It's just the slightest imperfection. And it's based off of that Old Testament thing where, the priest, they have to tie a rope around the priest as he goes into the Holy of Holies, because if he's not 100% perfect, God's going to smite him right on the spot. And so they have to be, able to pull him out with the rope in case, because if he dies, they can't go in there because then they'll die. So they have to be ready to pull him out with a rope. I mean, that's all in the Old Testament. You see what I mean? So this is, again, a projection of that narcissistic, failed relationship that the child has with the parents. So the child goes from the black and white, I love you, I hate you, and then turns it into you're perfect and I'm evil. And then as they grow up, they go, oh, mom is good and bad. And I am bad, but I'm also good. I have good side and I have a bad side. And that's when, we're all the same. We're all both good and bad. And that's a healthy person. The narcissist and the borderline, they get stuck and they can't get past that. And the borderline is like a skipping record. Because if you talk to borderlines will tell you how horrifically damaging and tragic it is for them. That it's just as painful for them as it is for you. That they are as much a victim of their splitting as you are. They don't see it coming either. When they look you in the face and they tell you that you're the best and they love you and they are idealizing you, they mean it. And then they start to fall in love. Then you start to connect. Your bonds, your wounds, your pillow talk after the best sex you've ever had when the borderline is love bombing you. Then they split. And then they hate you. And it's because, again, it's at that point where they're trying to integrate. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing a skipping record of an infant trying to integrate the good and the bad within themselves and with you. And that's also why, with borderlines, you'll see a lot of crazy narcissistic ego as well. They go back and forth between hating themselves to being the most beautiful in the room. And of course, you see that, of course, with narcissists. Narcissists are stuck in that they can't even get past the inability to integrate. They can't even get to that point. So they're just stuck in that firewall of I'm perfect, which is the projection of, what's happening inside. And it's all projection, by the way. So the magical thinking, here's my thoughts about magical thinking. So again, using, and listen, I am not at all immune to any of this. I'm on my other channel, you can see I'm a shaman and I teach all kinds of crazy spiritual hooey and all that kind of stuff too. So, I'm not unaware of all of that stuff. And I've certainly gone through periods in my life where, especially when I was a young adult and I was in college, I went to college to become a minister. I was going to be one of those evangelists. all that kind of stuff. I was going to do all that, which is all about, it's basically just turning splitting into a profession where, you're just talking about everything's evil or everything's good and salvation and you're horrible, but God loves you, even though he ruthlessly murdered his innocent son to make you feel guilty so that he could accept you and cover you with his blood because he can't tolerate you. So he has to see the carnage he's done to an innocent person on you, and then he can accept you. You know what I mean? It's just all that. So when I was 20 years old, or however old I was, that's where I was at. And so I understand magical thinking because I've had it. And one of the things I do in my shamanic work is I learn to walk that middle path of living in a spiritual universe where there are things that are beyond the physical, and at the same time staying grounded in reality. And so I'm not pointing fingers at the borderline, saying these silly, fairy dust worshiping borderlines, because I understand it. But here's what I think is going on. What I think is going on is that part of the reason that they discard you is because they're hoping that this time, and if I look back at my borderline ex and I remember the things that she said, I think she was trying to do it. She honestly thought I was going to be the one. I was going to be different, and I was going to be the one that was going to help her move. What she really wanted was she wanted to integrate. She wanted to be able to integrate the good and the bad within her and be able to tolerate her splitting and move past it. But that's why, she has a mental illness called borderline personality disorder. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so challenging for them to accept that. They can accept anything. I mean, my borderline would accept anything, no matter how crazy. If you said that she was, delusional and crazy and had, and was schizophrenic, she'd be, oh yeah, yep, I totally believe that. But you mentioned the word borderline personality disorder and she goes through the roof. She can't accept that. And I think it's because they intuitively know what it means and what it's all about. And especially when you explain the splitting to them, they get all bent out of shape and really resistant. I don't do that. And I think it's because they're so disappointed in themselves that every time that they fall in love, this time they're going to integrate. This time they're going to have their negative feelings and their loving feelings, and they're going to integrate it, and they'll make it work. And when that doesn't happen, they project onto you their own disappointment in themselves, their own self-hatred and their own anger and frustration at themselves for not making it work this time. And then they make it your fault. And so then it becomes, if I find the right person who's good enough, then I can integrate. Again, I'm thinking about a video I watched of a borderline who was trying to explain how non-borderlines need to treat her. And she was saying that, people just need to understand how to treat us, how to act towards us. And she went through this hypothetical. She says, for example, and she goes through this hypothetical about if she's having a problem or splitting or whatever, then she's going to give precise instructions to whoever she's with to, let's say if I tell you, you have to cradle me with your right arm and then put your left hand on my face and say these exact words in this thing, then I'll feel better. And if you don't do that, then I'm going to be upset, and you just need to do exactly what I want. And if you can do that and do it exactly the way it needs to be done, then I'll be okay. And if you could just understand that, but people don't understand that, so it's your fault that we do that. And I was like, oh my God. The inability of her to see that if somebody is willing to go tell me where to put my hand, tell me what words to say, that what's important is that their intent was to meet you in your emotional need in whatever way you needed, which is love. They were looking to love you where you were at. And even if they don't get it right, isn't the point. And a non-borderline would see that. When they say, give me a hug, they don't care which hand you put where. As long as you give them a hug, that's the intent. Following through on the intent is all that matters. And it shows that you love them. She couldn't see that. But it's because, she was playing out hypothetically. What happens is that she wants to integrate. She wants to take her loving feeling, which she can't tolerate that because that makes her so afraid she splits. And she can't tolerate the hate either. So it's not like, if you're out there sitting there thinking, so many of you codependents, again, you don't realize you're bordering on being an inverted narcissist when you say this. But when you want to blame the borderline for being these evil geniuses who are doing it to you, and they're choosing to manipulate you and get you vulnerable so that they can destroy you, to believe that they're doing that consciously, it doesn't help your healing. I forgot where I was going with that point, but that what's happening is that they're trying, but they can't do it. It's broken. They're stuck at age 6 months or 2 years or whatever it is. They're broken. They're stuck. And so they try to integrate. And so the borderline, again, is like a lifelong broken record of them seeking out, okay, I'm going to try it again this time. I'm going to find somebody I can idealize. They're trying to go back in time to infancy to integrate their narcissistic infantile feelings with their mother. And this is why. My borderline ex, I now looking back on with hindsight glasses, her mom was borderline. And I know because I saw them interact with each other. After, the way she talked about her, and then I saw them and I went, mom's a borderline. I get it now. And who was the only person she never split on? Mom. She split on everybody else. Her friends, her boyfriends, family. She split on everybody. But the only person she never split on was mom. Why? Because she was in that phase of constantly idealizing mom. She couldn't tolerate the thought of splitting on mom. She couldn't tolerate it. Which is, the beginning. The first thing that has to happen is that the child has to learn to hate mom and learn to tolerate their hatred for mom. Learn to tolerate that mom has disappointed them, that mom is not perfect, that mom is not God. And so I think that magical thinking is a doubling down. It's a way of trying to avoid the disappointment. Because I'll give you some ideas. What all of us are doing, whether you're codependent, borderline, narcissist, what all of us are trying to do is we're trying to avoid the pain that comes from integrating reality that doesn't meet our childish needs. The disappointment that somebody isn't perfect. When you come to that realization, it's a death. For instance, let me give you an example in my life. This is one of the things that happens when you get older. You can see I work really hard to stay in as excellent physical shape as I can, and I do that because I love things like surfing, and I just love being physical, and the thought of not having a strong physical body to enjoy this world and is intolerable to me. So I work really hard to stay healthy. But I'm 57, and what has happened is that I just don't have the stamina to surf like I used to. I can't go out in big waves and paddle, and battle through giant white water and being held down, and paddling and being out of breath and then having to be held down by a wave and all of that. It's hard work. And I can't surf tiny little surfboards anymore. I need a surfboard that I don't have to work as hard to catch waves and is easier to stand up on. And that's really intolerable for me because I don't want to let go of the fantasy of still being 25. No matter how good a shape I'm in, that's like, I always get beaten down into reality when I go out in the water and I go surfing. So It's a painful loss. In fact, I've got a surfboard downstairs. I just took it out again. I mean, I've done this 3 or 4 times in the past, 10 years, where I think, I can do it now. I'm in better shape, and I go down to a lower, smaller surfboard, and I'm like, no. I mean, I can surf it, but I'm like, I'm just not as comfortable. I don't have the confidence. I need a bigger board, and it's a death. I got to die to that. So accepting reality, accepting the fantasy, which is what we have to do in any relationship. When we fall in love with somebody, when we have friends, when we have kids, when you have a relationship with your job, you have to at some point learn how to tolerate imperfection. And so this is what happens with the narcissist. They can't do it. They try. They fall in love with you. This is why when they hoover you back, they say, this time it's going to be different. Because they mean it. It's going to be different this time. This time, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to tolerate my disappointment because I know that's the only way to get a long-term, real love. I know that that's what it is, so I'm going to do it this time. And then guess what happens? Then you start to love them. They idealize you. They don't realize they're walking into a trap by idealizing you. They think it's all going to work. And then, of course, they split on you. They think you've disappointed them. They'll describe the narrative as you did something to disappoint them. Your perspective is, I didn't do a fucking thing. This all went on in your head. But either way, it's the same experience. You disappointed them. You're not perfect. You're not God. And they're so furious at themselves. They're so incapable of not only tolerating their negative feelings towards you, but they also can't tolerate their negative feelings towards themselves. Because, this is true with codependence, the transactional relationship that you have with dysfunctional narcissistic parents is that you're not loved for who you are, you're loved for what you do, which means you have to be perfect. So perfectionism. So it's a projection on you. They're actually absolutely mortified with themselves that they're not perfect. And so they project that onto you, and it's your fault. And then they can't stop themselves. And if you talk to borderlines that have been in therapy for a long time, they'll say, it's like I'm watching. I hear myself say all these horrible things to somebody, and I know none of it's true, and I can't stop it. The impulse to do it is so strong they can't stop it. And so what's happening is that everything that's coming out of their mouth towards the other person is really them destroying themselves. And so in order to tolerate that, you have to go one step further, which is you have to start living in magical thinking, this other reality. So let me give you some examples. So one of the things that I've found after doing this channel, is that what you will find with people who get involved in these kinds of relationships is you'll find a mix of a bunch of things. Of course, you'll find people like me who've gone the path of therapy and 12 steps, and so I talk that language. And I talk that, how to recover through those techniques. And then you have people who, understandably and I think legitimately use spiritual paths like meditation and yoga and things like that in order to get their self-worth through their spiritual connection, which is again a way of integrating. And then you'll hear people who will go into total Looney Tune land, and you will see again extremes, black and white extremes, but you'll see this magical thinking will come in. And so they go from being these very broken codependent or narcissists and or borderlines. I think they're all strung in there together. I think they're all part of this same ball of wax. And then this is where the super empath comes. So being an empath wasn't enough. If you remember a while ago, it was just you're an empath. So empaths, according to the theory, is that empaths, because they're so sensitive and they're so loving and they're so giving and et cetera, and they're these psychic beings and they know what's going, all that, the whole drill. That's not good enough. They start to realize that being an empath is sort of the same as just being a victim. And they don't want that. So then they become these bulletproof super empaths. And among super empaths, you also have star seeds, earth angels, there's light workers, the 144,000. You know, in other words, like let's take starseed for example. So starseed is somebody who isn't human, who has come from Zeta Reticuli, and that's why I don't interact with people. That's why I'm so sensitive. That's why I'm always on the fringe, and that's why people don't understand me, and that's why this life is so hard on me, because I'm not human. I'm superhuman. I'm a Zeta Reticuli, you know, from the planet, what is it, Zarkon or whatever it is. And they'll go and they'll listen to channelers who channel, you know, Zohar the Magnificent, you know, and they'll go to, you know, what is that? I keep forgetting that name. It's my favorite fake spiritual path. You know, the law of attraction folks. They'll do that. They'll go on that, which, by the way, is spiritualizing. Law of attraction. Let me give you. Law of attraction is a way to spiritualize your narcissistic transactional childhood relationship. And as you know, the law of attraction says you attract into your life whatever you're feeling. So if you feel happy, happy things will come. If you think about money and you have positive feelings about money, money will irresistibly come to you. If you have negative feelings, if you have doubt, if you have fear, if when you think of money, you're afraid of money, if you think you're not successful, then bad things will happen. And that is exactly what the narcissistic parent says to the kid. I'll give you something to cry about. You better wipe that smile off your face right now, mister. I'll wipe that off. You better be happy. When you come in here, you better have a happy look on your face and you better be smiling, or I'm going to give you what for. And so you learn to be happy and never make daddy or mommy upset. Because if you do, you know, I'm giving this to you because you made me upset. It's that transactional relationship. And so that creates a spiritualized version of the universe that doesn't ever see you for who you are. It only sees you for what you do, which is to have the perfect smile on your face and loving feeling all the time. And if you've ever hung out with those people, you'll find that they're very passive aggressive, and you'll find that they talk the talk of everything in light and love until, you know, at some point they'll explode on you. Especially if they take drugs, if they smoke weed, you know. They smoke a lot of weed and talk about being one with the universe, man, and then you'll find out they're the most passive-aggressive and explosively angry people, especially when they're not stoned. So that's a way of spiritualizing that. What you want is you want that perfection of mom and dad, that perfection of mom. Mom isn't perfect. Mom is abusive. It's death to admit that mom is abusive. If you're, I mean, again, I saw it with my borderline ex. She would rail on everybody, especially her dad. Makes me wonder about, you know, if dad was just some poor codependent that was strung along with this borderline. She would talk about her dad and how weak her dad was and all that kind of stuff. But her mom was perfect. Her mom did no wrong. And I met mom, and mom was definitely a borderline. So they can't tolerate integrating, which is learning to hate mom and integrating that. A good example is, if I remember doing this as a kid, so I guess my mom didn't do everything bad, but I remember standing with my hands on my hips as a 4-year-old and saying, Mom, I hate you. And her saying, I know, that's okay. I'm still not going to give you a cookie or whatever it was. I think it was something else, but you get what I'm saying. And so that's what the borderline can't do. The borderline can't look you in the face and feel, I hate you, and then realize that that's just part of life, that people will disappoint you, and that, you know, their boyfriend is not super perfect or super bad. They're somewhere in between. But then when you isolate yourself, especially when you've been discarded, empaths, when you've been discarded, what's the first thing that happens? You turn into a super empath. the strategy to deal with the discard of being destroyed, of being discarded, you then start to double down and you become not just an empath, but a super empath. And then what the super empath does is the super empath becomes bulletproof and then goes supernova. And it's all a way of continuing to spiritualize the magical thinking of the inability to tolerate being the disappointment, the depression that comes from integrating. So the point I'm trying to make is that to become healthy, one must be able to integrate and go through sadness, go through depression, go through disappointment, like to be sad. You know, Santa Claus doesn't exist. That's a sad, you have to accept that. You have to integrate. Oh, Santa Claus was mom this whole time. There is no Santa Claus. That's sad. But that's how then you grow up. You grow up and you learn how to deal with objective reality. You know, the stuff that happened politically in the United States, perfect example. You know, you had a bunch of borderlines and narcissists who had projected onto Donald Trump, you know, and or identified with him, and he was perfect and could do no wrong, and he lost the election. And even he said, I didn't lose the election. But here's, everybody else says, no, here's all the proof. And they said, no, he's perfect. Q, the whole QAnon thing. And they go and they rampage. They're flipping out. These are people that are splitting on their own country for disappointing them, because the other half doesn't want your guy, they want the other guy, and they're splitting. They can't tolerate it. So they can't accept objective reality, so they turn it into this QAnon thing, and Trump is the savior. And of course, when that happens, it's the ultimate destruction of the self. It's the ultimate which is why borderlines have to destroy everything. They can't just come to you and say, you know, I realize that I had unrealistic expectations and I apologize. I saw you as something else and that was my projection, and I was cranky the other day and that's why, and I'm sorry and I love you, but now I see you as a person now, and you say, thank you, I'm glad you finally see me as a person. It was really hard being up on that pedestal. I can't do that for very long. So all I do is I type in super empath on YouTube. I'm not going to play any videos. I'm just going to read the titles. So you can see what I'm talking about. The magical thinking. And again, the magical thinking is a doubling down. You have to try even harder to avoid being disappointed and going through the pain of not living in this, this duality that your infantile mind wants to do. That's whether you're a narcissist, borderline, or codependent. We're all doing it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be together. We're all suffering from the same issue. It's just a different manifestation of the same problem. So let's see. Here's one. Only a super empath can break the narcissist. Now, this is actually from a guy who claims to be a narcissist, but I think, to be honest, I think he is a narcissist who uses his channel to get supply off of the super empaths. And so he's knowingly telling them what they want to hear, which is only a super empath can break the narcissist. Now, it is true, narcissists and borderlines can't tolerate the thought of being discarded. So it's true that does break them. But the idea is that you're the one. You're the special one. You're the super empath that destroyed the greater narcissist. And there's people say super empath versus greater narcissist. It can't just be empath narcissist. You have to take it one step further, because that's not good enough. We have to idealize it even more. We have to spiritualize it even more. Only a super empath can break the narcissist. Here's another title. The super empath is the narcissist's worst nightmare. Again, all I did was type in super empath, and these are the videos that come up. This is the fantasy. It's a projection, because the truth is that the narcissist is the empath's worst nightmare. They go into it and they get, they throw themselves away and they get abused and destroyed and rejected, and they fall in love with the unattainable, again, the narcissistic parent that will never love them, and so they can't escape. They know it's wrong for them. And so then after being discarded, they then spiritualize this fantasy of, I'm now a super empath, which means I'm bulletproof, and I'm the worst nightmare. It's the projection of what happened to them, and it's their fantasy now. Now they've become the inverted narcissist, and they're going to go, in their mind, they're going to go out. I mean, the only reason for watching this is to go out and find a narcissist and destroy them so you can get your sense of self back. And the reason why that's, I'm talking about that like it's crazy is because that's not the only option there is in life. After being destroyed by a narcissist doesn't mean that your only option is to find a narcissist to destroy. It means that, why don't I go and have empathy for that very broken person who abused me and find real love? Why don't I go heal myself and find real love? Why is that not the first thought of, wow, I can't believe I was with such a horrible person? You know what? I'm going to heal myself and find somebody who will love me for who I am. I'll tell you why. Because they can't tolerate the thought of being loved. The truth is that they want to be abused, and this time they're going to turn it around, and they're going to, it becomes this battle. That's why borderlines love narcissists, because they're two narcissists battling with each other. And the borderline, if you date one, the borderline will try to turn you into a narcissist so that they can destroy you. They ultimately achieve that with their projection when they split, because in their mind you became the narcissist, and then they live out their fantasy of destroying their parent. So what I didn't know, if I could go back in time and talk to myself a year ago, as I was going through the discard, I would say, the reason why she did this to you is because this is her fantasy of what she wants to do to her mom, who she still can't break away from. Her mom, who she sees as this perfect person that she loves more than anything in the world. That abusive borderline that continues to deny her love. This is why. She has to fulfill her unconscious rage towards her mother, and she's got to find somebody she can do that to on an unconscious level. And so if it's between you and the mom, she's going to destroy you, because in her mind that is. We talked about that before. Here's another one. Let's see. I don't know. This would be an interesting one. I'm not going to watch it. But the difference between an empath and a super empath. Here's one. Let's see. The narcissist mistakes the super empath's kindness for weakness. Again, why are you being kind to a narcissist? I mean, that you write that out as though it's a done deal and it's understood. Yeah, I mean, he's a narcissist and I'm with him, and yeah. So what do you mean? Of course I'm with him, a narcissist. There's no other choice, is there? The narcissist mistakes the super empath's kindness for weakness. It assumes that you chose to be with a narcissist, all the while pretending to be this weak empath, but you're just letting them think that until you're going to show them how strong you are. I mean, it's an inverted narcissist. It is a covert narcissist. It's the fantasy. Of course, that's not what happens. That's not what happens. The empath, the super empath, the codependent, unwillingly gets pulled into it because of their need to be loved by somebody who's incapable of loving them. And they fall in love against their better judgment, and they get hurt and abused and discarded. And then afterwards, they create this fantasy. They spiritualize it. And so they'll talk about how, no, this is, I've been chosen to come here and endure this so that I can become this super being who is the most loving, the most kind, like God Almighty. But God help you if you don't love me and only me. I'll throw you into hell and, put the plagues on you and all that kind of stuff. The 4 super empath traits, I'd be interested to know what those are. Awakening of the super empath. The narcissist is afraid of the super empath. That's a fantasy, because if you can create fear in somebody, what does that mean? It means that you have all the power. Who does that? Narcissists do that. Narcissists create fear so that they can have control, so that they won't be hurt. They control you because they know they're not lovable. If they try to be loved for who they are, they're sure you're going to reject them because they know internally they're unlovable. So what do? They become these these narcissistic, abusive people. And they find people who will be afraid of their anger, who will be afraid of their wrath, who will be afraid of their rejection, like a little kid. And so after the empath has been discarded, their fantasy is to become the narcissist. And so they say the narcissist is afraid of the super empath. And they can't see it. The 10 differences between the heyoka and the super empath. So you have the super empath, and then that's not good enough. You have to have the heyoka. It's even beyond that. Here's another one. Why do narcissists hate the super empath? Because narcissists hate everybody. You're not special, super empath, you narcissist, you inverted narcissist. You're not so special that the narcissist only hates you. They hate everybody. You're just the only one stupid enough to allow them to pull you into their thing so that you can experience your victimhood and then feel justified in being a victim, etc. Here's a good fantasy here. There's a picture of a lion who's got a giant snake. I guess the lion is going to kill the snake. Although the snake is looking to bite his paw, I see there, so you got to be careful. The super empath forces the narcissist to hide. That is a huge fantasy, because what happens after you've been discarded? You go and hide. You go and you get depressed. It means I want to damage you so bad that you will go and feel as depressed as I am. If you remember watching the video that I played yesterday, where I played for you 15 minutes of the day that I got discarded, and I remember saying I want her to feel my pain. I want to know that she understands how I feel. That's this fantasy of I'm going to force them to hide. I'm going to hurt them so bad. A super empath gone supernova. Here's another one. The narcissist hates and obsesses over the super empath. I mean, there's some truth to that, of course, but guess who started it first? The discarded codependent goes back and forth between hating and obsessing over the borderline, the narcissist. The 10 things the super empath does to beat the narcissist. All I did was type in. I didn't type in super empath destroys. I typed in super empath. These are all of the videos that are coming up, which just shows the projection and the fantasy of what codependents think. They want to believe. They're now spiritualizing it. Their inability to tolerate the disappointment of themselves not being... This is about the codependent not willing to accept their own experience that they're not lovable, that they're not perfect. Really what it is, that they're not perfect. Because in real life, people love you for not being perfect. They think it's cute that you tie your shoes funny, that you have a cute smirk on your face, that you always mispronounce that word. They think it's cute. Again, Donald Trump, I believe Donald Trump is a narcissist, and you'll see he never corrects himself whenever he mispronounces something. The average person will mispronounce it. Go, excuse me, I got molasses on my tongue, and then they'll pronounce it correctly. They'll make fun of themselves because they're able to integrate. It's okay to be imperfect, and they love themselves anyway. Here's another one. The awakening of the super empath is the death of the narcissist. I could keep going. Steps, I'm not kidding. This is steps to healing when the super empath destroys the narcissist. 10 ways how a super empath destroys a narcissist. The narcissist versus the super empath. Versus, the narcissist is devastated by the loss of the super empath. That is their fantasy. That is their narcissistic fantasy. So all of us, I don't care what side of the equation you're on. I don't care if you are the empath. Again, you want to call yourself an empath? Go right ahead. I'm going to call you a codependent. I don't care if you're codependent. I don't care if you're borderline. I don't care if you're a narcissist. I don't care if you're a mixture of all of them, because all of them are codependents. The main ingredient for all of them is narcissism. And just because you got involved with a borderline doesn't mean they're a narcissist and you're not. It means if you got involved, you're a narcissist. The only way it works, that dual projection where you're projecting onto each other, it only works if you're a narcissist and you need to project your perfection onto somebody else. You need to escape your imperfection. Because the only way that you were taught to love is by what you did, not by who you were. So you chose somebody who will love you for what you do. Mine told me right off the bat. She said, I love a strong male presence because I'm going to make him happy. And when he's happy, I will be happy. And so it's all about you being happy all the time. And my narcissism said, yeah, that sounds really great. But my insides went, wow, that sounds really difficult. How am I going to be happy all the time? Does that mean if I'm unhappy, she won't love me? And that's exactly what happened. When I was not happy, she hated me. And it was my fault. She was miserable because I wasn't exuding happiness for her to feed off of. All right. So you get the idea? Let's see. I'm happy to take any questions. Let's see. Kevin C. So bear in mind, again, you guys come onto my channel. I try and help you as best I can. Maybe this is my narcissism. If you ask an honest question, something you think I know that you don't know, I'll try my best to answer it. I can't guarantee I won't psychoanalyze you. But if you just dump an opinion, you're putting a target on your head. And if I see some unconsciousness there, some unawareness, I'm going to point it out to you because it's good for the rest of us to see ourselves in it. So Kevin C. says, they know what you're feeling, thinking, and will do to hurt them because it's exactly what they feel, think, and have done. Ha ha. I can't really find anything wrong with that other than the feeling that, wanting to demonize them. So the thing to do is to see yourself in them. So guess what, Kevin? This is your projection. Kevin says, I know what, now I'm going to read it as though this is your projection. I know what I'm feeling, thinking, and will do to hurt myself because it's exactly what I feel, think, and have done. That doesn't quite work, but you get it. This is your projection. So you say they know what you're feeling, thinking, and will do to hurt them because it's exactly what they feel, think, and have done. So that means that you know what they're feeling, thinking, and will do to hurt them because it's exactly what you feel, think, and have done. We're all part of it. There's no way. It's just you chose to be on the victim quote side. And, but as we've seen here, what happens to the victim? They turn into a covert secondary psychopath. They go out to destroy, the person that hurt them. That need to demonize the borderline is your psychopathy, not you personally, Kevin. All of us. It's our psychopathy. And we're all part of the same lumpy mess. And then it's NM says, it's wild how AJ has started a podcast. A podcast? Has started, so you mean other than her YouTube channel? Has started a podcast using the exact same name as your channel. It's strange. It was a bit surprising to see that, I guess, even if it's treated not guaranteed to BPD's healing. Well, not only that, but you go onto her channel and you'll see that she'll take my exact titles of my videos and do the same title and or put a not in there because there are a few things I say that she can't tolerate. And she even, I haven't looked at it in weeks, but I just out of for fun, I went and looked at it, and one of them was, borderlines are not failed narcissists. There are just some things that she just, yeah. But yeah, it's the thing about narcissism is that narcissism has to compete. And again, this is integration. It's me or you. It's not both me and you. There's no like union of both good and bad. You know what I mean? You can't allow somebody else envy. Envy is one of the things about narcissism. And I would actually change that, not envy, but jealousy. Because envy is different from jealousy. Envy says, you see your rich neighbor with a hot wife and you go, man, I wish I was rich with a hot wife. And then you go out and get rich and get a hot wife. So you can be envious of somebody without demonizing them. But jealousy is when you go and steal his money and then steal his wife. So I would, this is Sam Vaknin said that narcissists are envious. And I would make a differentiation. They're not envious, they're jealous. And jealousy means that there's only room for one hot-looking wife in the world. And you have that one hot-looking wife, therefore I have to have it. That's the narcissist. Healthy person goes, wow, she's really hot. Good for you. I'm going to go get one. I'm envious of you, man. That looks great. So there might be a little twinge, but you go, yeah, that person can do it. I can do it. I remember that's, when I went and learned from my martial arts teacher, the first time I walked in and he did these amazing, phenomenal things and he looked, he was, compared to me, he was just totally untouchable and unbeatable. And looking back on it after talking about it with a friend of mine, he said, that's the sign of a successful person. Because my first response was, if he can do it, I can do it. But if you have the self-criticism going on, then you go, wow, that guy's untouchable. I'll never be as good as him. And so then you have to badmouth the person and make him worse. Again, this is why. I don't know why AJ, she targeted me before I even knew she existed. I don't know why. There's no shortage of room for YouTube channels and podcasts and all that. It's not like, it's just me and her. It's not like, she has to be successful and I have to not be successful. If I'm successful, it somehow means, it doesn't mean that. But you also said something about being treated. This is why I stress the three things. The three things that you need are therapy, working the 12 steps, and daily meditation. And you have to have the desire to heal for yourself. Because, the thing about cluster Bs and codependence is that they can talk a really good game. It doesn't mean that they practice it, and it doesn't mean that they have awareness. The things that I've found most healing about this awareness has been the awareness of that it's really about the inability to tolerate one's own loving feelings. This is what creates codependence. This is what creates borderlines, narcissists. It's why I have such empathy for borderlines now, is because I'm able to climb inside them, hypothetically, and understand that what's happening is that they actually do love you, and that love creates such an intense fear, the inability to integrate, the inability to individuate, that causes them to split. And that's really sad when I think about it. Now it's not personal. Now, actually, I go back and I think about, when my borderline ex split on me and then would hoover me and split on me and hoover me, she was trying. She was really trying. She wasn't thinking about how to destroy me. That's how it felt, because when I was at the height of the ultimate discard, which I chose to be the last one, don't know if it would have been or not, but that I decided that was it. I had taken on so much of her induced feelings about myself that I was certain that she was doing it on purpose. And it was so insidious, her ability to pull me into this ultimately vulnerable state to then hurt me in the worst possible way. Unless you've been through it, you won't know what I'm talking about. I don't care, the normal person, somebody cheated on them. I don't care how hurt they were. It's nothing like what a borderline does to you. And the thing is that now I see that she wasn't doing it to me, that her mental illness was doing it to both of us. It was doing it to her worse because she was incapable of rebounding. Again, this is why I'm coming at you super empaths that go supernova so hard, because you've bought it. You've become one. You've been so infected that you're going to turn into not just a borderline, but you're going to turn into a full-blown narcissist. Going supernova is the same as becoming full-blown narcissist. I'm going to destroy that's just narcissism. The inability to, the ironic thing is that there's zero empathy. You talk about being a super empath. A super empath would go, oh my God, that narcissist is in so much pain. I don't take any of this personally because I can see now with my empathic powers that this has nothing to do with me. Oh my God, it's horrible. They must have gone through so much. And wow, at the same time, they're so dangerous and they're so narcissistic. I can't have anything to do with the narcissist, but holy crap, I feel bad for them. That's empathy. Not they're evil wolves that are planning your demise and they're super geniuses and they do it on purpose and they seek you out so that they can, again, there's partial truths in there. But, to blanket statement like that, that's narcissism. That's the inability, that's the exact opposite of empathy. So, every time you guys write on here about what they're doing and how they do it, that shows me the narcissism. And I understand because I have that same thing. I had it. And what has helped me was, again, that fourth step, doing the fourth step. If you haven't done the fourth step, go to Coda. Again, this is the main place. If you want to heal, this is the main place. Go to coda.org. Go to a virtual meeting. If you need to, raise your little hand and say, I'm new here and I need a sponsor to walk me through the 12 steps. And if somebody doesn't want to take you through the steps, say, thank you, I appreciate it. I really want to find somebody who will help me with the steps. And work those steps. Then you will realize none of it was about you. You can get to that place where I'm at with my borderline ex, and I have no pain associated with her whatsoever. And I have no anger. I have nothing but compassion and empathy for her. And at the same time, I have no need to know what the hell's going on in her life. And I don't even know if she's dead or alive, happy, sad, in therapy, not. It's none of my business. I don't care. And I'm okay not knowing. All right, what else? Yeah, so, I must be doing something right to push her buttons that bad that she has to copy my thing exactly. That's that projection. That's the envy, or the jealousy of the narcissist. And the point is that, there's another thing that I say that she doesn't like, which is that borderlines never recover. So there's no such thing as a recovered borderline. There's a borderline who can be in recovery, but any borderline, if they're truly borderline, after 10 years of therapy, they'll say, no, I'm never going to be free of this, but I've learned how to manage it. And they'll get slight increments of things do get a little better and easier, but a true borderline in recovery will admit, oh yeah, I still split. I split all the time. They've just learned how to tolerate it, or learn how to, I don't know what they do. That's, I'm not a therapist, so I don't know. So for somebody to say that they've cured themselves of BPD, that's a pretty damn sure sign that they haven't. And that they've got the intellectual knowledge, they can talk the talk, they might even be a great therapist, but it does not mean that you'll see, if you look at them, you'll see they will do that narcissistic raging on everything, when nobody's looking. So, and the other thing is, if you want to be with a therapist who has a therapist, you want to be with a therapist who has a supervisor that they work with. Because just because somebody's a therapist doesn't mean that they're not screwed up. There's no shortage of really screwed up therapists out there. Just because you went and got a degree somewhere doesn't mean that you've been able to actually do anything, heal yourself. Really, the best therapist is somebody who's learned how to heal themselves. Anyway, let's keep going. So NM thanks me, so yep. Let's see, he says, finally going to therapy, good for you, but I need to go to Coda more often. I'm still discovering which meditation. Well, good. I mean, the only thing to do is just do your best. It's not about being perfect. The only thing is, have I done something today towards my healing? Did I go to a meeting? Did I write, in my journal, did I, write down another resentment? Something. Did I share with somebody else? Did I work with somebody else? Did I meditate? Am I better, on the whole, am I getting better than is, progress, not perfection? Is there, as long as you can see that there's a current of progress, that's all that matters. It's like a diet. I mean, I don't diet, but I imagine, you restrict your calories or whatever it is, and then every now and then you treat yourself to a sliver of chocolate cake. But yeah, you can splurge every now and then, but on the whole, are you still losing weight? Yes, then that's all that matters, right? All right, let's see what else. Kevin C. My basic take on the super empath is they are someone who maybe discovered these things about cluster B, and instead of taking responsibility for their own actions, they need to blame and be a victim. Well, I would go further. I'm not worshiping anybody here, but I like Sam Vaknin's take on it. If you're not familiar with him, go look him up. He's got some great stuff. I think he was the guy that even came up with a lot of the terms that we use, like splitting and supply and all that kind of stuff. But he goes on to say that people who that talk like this, he calls them covert narcissists. And again, what he means by covert narcissist is not a narcissist who's pretending to be something that they're not. It means that is their secondary response to their internal trauma, to their PTSD. So the overt narcissist, which is what we see as the evil genius. The overt narcissist has a firewall, a false self that they portray to the world that they never break. And that's because they are so broken. Their insecurity is so horrifically all-consuming that to even for a second acknowledge their pain and their vulnerability could kill them, could literally kill them. So they create this firewall of the perfect person who has no faults and can do no wrong, and their entire motivation is to get your attention and to get your praise, and anybody who does not do what they want, when they want, how they want, they have to destroy. Again, look at Trump. Trump, went through a horrific mortification after not only losing the election, but then creating this coup that failed, and then halfway meaning to but not meaning to, and then enjoying it, but now he's getting all the backlash, and what's going to happen now. And now he's targeting, literally threatening the lives of both Republicans and Democrats who he feel betrayed him. That's the narcissist, that false personality of, if you don't worship me, just like Jehovah says, if you don't follow all of my commandments perfectly, then you hate me. And if you hate me, I'm going to send you to hell. I mean, that's why, again, Jehovah is the perfect narcissist. So there's that fake person, and then there's the inverted narcissist, who is the opposite, who takes on the role of the victim. There's no coincidence that these people, I'm not going to call all of them inverted narcissists, because some of them might just be codependents who are going through some struggle, and if they're not careful, they're going to turn into narcissists. But they turn it around, and their method of gaining supply is by people pleasing, kissing people's asses, and being perfect that way. So instead of being the king who's standing up, bow down and worship me, I'm perfect, they're going to be the perfect servant, the perfect doormat. And they will go out of their way. And so that's why super empaths call themselves super empaths. That's why they will in one sentence say, I love more than anybody else, and I'm just here and I just give and give and give. But if you keep abusing me, I'm going to go supernova on you and I'll destroy you. It's because that's their method. Their primary method of narcissism is to get the approval of being the perfect ass-kissing whatever it is. They're always passive aggressive. They're always a victim. They're always a doormat. Self-effacing, self-hatred. That's how they do it. They do that perfectly. And then eventually what they want to do is destroy you. So that's their method. They go in to become indispensable to the overt narcissist. So again, it's just two narcissists playing a game with each other. The overt narcissist says, bow down and worship me and I'll abuse you. The covert narcissist, or the unconscious narcissist, we could call it, says, yes, I'm the victim. I don't deserve any love. Please beat me. And I will be so good at allowing you to abuse me that you won't be able to live without me. I will feed your ego as much as possible until you can't live without me. And then I'm going to turn on you and destroy you. Because at some point, the narcissist will be the narcissist and will discard, which then the super empath has the excuse to go supernova. So what's hard to tell is how many of these super empaths are actually, covert narcissists, secondary inverted narcissists, and how many are, comorbid. They're codependents with this this narcissistic comorbidity. It's hard to tell. I think it's a sliding scale. Like I said, I relate to all of those titles that I read. The super empath destroys the narcissist, and the narcissist can't live without the super empath, and the super empath never recovers from the loss of the narcissist. I understand all of that because I used to fantasize those things. The difference is that I consciously chose not to follow through with that, because I knew it was just a dead end. I knew it was just going to make me more unhappy, and I would never win. I would never win in a narcissism battle with that borderline because she was even more messed up than I was. So I gave up. So that's what's hard for me to tell. I can't tell. So, I'm going to be ruthless with you, super empaths. You're pretending to be something you're not. And again, why? The whole point is to be happy. The whole point is to have love in your life. Why would you want to make your whole life about destroying somebody who can't love you? It doesn't make any sense unless you're a secondary psychopath. So those are the three things. No matter where you are on the scale, I don't care how much of a narcissist you've come to realize you are, borderline, codependent, whatever, but specifically the codependents, work those 12 steps. Work those 12 steps. And you can learn to be self-honest and self-aware and go through the disappointment of the lack of perfection in yourself and in others. It's very sad. It will devastate you. It will destroy you. But that's what the firewall is about. The firewall is trying to avoid the destruction of self that comes when you learn how to integrate, when you learn how to individuate. You have to go through the sadness. So unlike the super empath who talks about being happy and perfect and we're part of the 144,000, or I'm a star seed, or I'm an earth angel, or I'm the super being and the pain was there to awaken myself to my superpowers of invulnerability. Instead of going that route of denial, you can find your infinity and find because all those things are true. It's not that any of that is untrue. You are an amazing being. You are unique. You are, from a spiritual perspective, in my belief anyway, you are an infinite being. You are the creator of the universe. But also, as a human, you have to enjoy the process of dying to the false self, dying to that, that false perfect self, and it's okay to be imperfect. And in that imperfection, you learn how to love yourself. You learn how to accept yourself and your imperfection, which then gives you the ability to love people in their imperfection, which then gives you true empathy, so that when a narcissist comes walking down the street, you can go, whoa, there's a narcissist. I'm going to stay away from that guy or that girl or whatever it is. It's got you this self-awareness, looking at yourself and doing the work and going through the pain. There's no way around going through the pain. What else? Kevin C. question. You commonly talk about how cluster Bs are generally made in the infant stages, including codependence. What is your opinion on how the same thing may happen in later mature stages of life? I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I'm doing my best to figure this out. I honestly don't know. My guess is my uneducated, but based on my experience, guess is that borderlines and narcissists, it happens somewhere between 0, we already know this, it happens somewhere between 0 and 2 years of age. And whatever it is, it broke them. They got broke and they got psychologically stuck. I forget what the word is. Somewhere, 6 months, a year, year and a half, 2 years. So the borderline, the narcissist are somewhere between 0 and 2 years of age in emotional development. So I've heard somebody else say, which makes sense, that, hey, parents, you got 3 years to get it right. So maybe we can say that for the codependent, something happens between the ages of 2 and 4. That would make sense for me if I look back. I mean, I'm sure there was all kinds of stuff that happened. I have vague memories of crying, and feeling like, I was also born early. Now that I remembered, I was born like 6 weeks early minimum. And this was 1963. So they did this really amazing thing that doesn't make any sense. And they take premature infants and they stick them in an empty fish tank so that nobody can touch them. And I was in that fish tank when I was born. And even now when I see preemies in the hospital, I shudder. My body shudders. So it must have been a really traumatic experience that I obviously don't remember. But I can definitely remember at age 4 when my mom split on me. My mom, the way I have it is we had this beautiful love affair, and she was perfect and I was perfect and we were the best of friends. And then at age 4, she just split on me. I've talked about it before, but I think that's where my codependence really was kicked in gear. But obviously those first 3 years being, alcoholic father and a codependent mom, borderline tendencies, there must have been stuff that happened. So to answer your question, I don't know. I'm just guessing. I have a pretty good idea of borderlines and narcissists. In terms of codependence, I think it maybe happens a little later, or they don't break in the same way, which is why there's some hope for some codependence. You can heal, but the main thing is you have to be able to look at your agendas. You have to be able to look at your expectations. You have to be able to feel the pain of realizing you wanted mom's love and you never got it, and to go through the mourning and the sadness. You wanted dad's love. You wanted, in my case, my older brother. I wanted my older brother's love. And he was the narcissist in my life. So anyway, Kevin C. collapsed Narc. I haven't heard that, but that sounds good. All right, that's it. Nothing else? No other questions? All right, so if you want to learn about the 3 things that I talk about, the 3 things that you must do to recover, to heal, to actually gain happiness and to have your sense of life back. I mean, you'll still be a human being, but in terms of having your borderline X, haunt you in your dreams and destroy your ability to enjoy life and still love them years later after they destroyed you. And if you want to avoid getting another one in your life, click the join button at the super empath level. And there are members only videos where I talk about those three things: therapy, 12 steps, meditation. I even give you some meditations that you can do. Of course, subscribe, hit the bell button. The 90-day challenge is on my other website, which is not directly related to this, but it's related to the idea of going after what your soul wants. If you really want to be a super empath, which means being bulletproof against the garbage that life throws at you, and still have love and compassion for everybody and not walk around spending your whole life needing to go supernova on everybody, then I recommend the 90-day challenge, which is you go to thunderwizard.com and click around for Warrior 90-day challenge. And I've got other links up here which you're welcome to go check out. And I've also got the distance healing. And you can check that out if you want. If you're into that kind of thing, go check that out. And I'd be happy to help you in those ways if that's helpful for you. If not, you don't need anything that I'm offering to heal. You need those three things: therapy, work the 12 steps, meditate on a daily basis. That's the only thing that's going to do it, in my experience. So that's it for me, guys. I will see you when I see you.